He could build his business, you know?
I know.
He's not going to be Beyonce, but like, you know? He could build his loyal, 1,000 true fans.
Facts.
But anyway, all right, so, I usually start the tour out here.
Okay.
The retail store is the newest addition to our model.
Yeah.
And for us, it was like, when we knew we were coming to the gallery, also known now as the Fashion District, they're projecting about 30 million people a year to come through this space. So for us, I'm like, we have a lot of people who are creating products, that are members. So we wanted to make sure that they had the ability to sell right out here.
Right.
So essentially we have our rec merch here, but outside of that, we have, the merch of 14 different members currently selling out here. And other just important people in the community. So, BWC, Josh Lang to Tierra Whack over here, Beige Links, Alexander Charles, yep. That's what it's about. It's really about economic empowerment at its finest.
My man, welcome to the courtroom.
Let's go.
We got Will Toms. We're back in Philly for this one. I'm really, really, really excited. Me and Will have been talking a while about getting this done. A lot of things have happened. A lot of good things have happened, making us very, very, very busy, more importantly. But I'm super excited to get this one out the way. I think this is big for sort of the creating community in Philly. Rec Philly is, means so much now. Your personal brand means a lot to a lot of people coming up in the city. So,
thank you.
I think this one's going to be one that ages very, very well.
Yeah, I agree, man. And one, thank you for making this happen.
Yeah.
But I'm excited, bro. I think, you and I have these kinds of conversations often, right?
Off record often. We're at the new rec space, by the way.
Yes, we are.
It's a brand new facility, late 2019, sorry. A lot of things happened, and sort of the culmination was, getting a 10,000 square foot space.
That's correct.
And what we used to call the gallery.
Facts.
The new fashion district. This is something that I haven't seen before. I don't think many people have seen. Studio space, podcast.
That's correct.
Dance
studio,
dance studio,
event space,
right?
Right?
Live Nation sponsored event space. So it's like this is really just incredible. So for me, I want to get back to the origins, man. What is your sort of connection to Philly music, Philly, the creative scene? When did that start for you?
Word. Yeah, that's a great place to start. So for me, man, coming up as a kid, the first connection to art, period, right, for me was writing poetry, right, trying to figure out who I was, right, growing up as a lot of kids in Philly do. My family's from Germantown, right. So, a lot of adversity happens, right, when you're in the inner city doing these sorts of things. So my way of processing the world was through poetry and those sorts of things. That transitioned into fall in love with, visual storytelling, music videos, producing and directing, things like that.
Right.
But I think there was a switch for me later on where it was really all about trying to navigate that business side. I was always attracted to, okay, this is all fun as far as the artistic expression and us to be able to create art. But it was also really important to be like, well, I actually want to live my life through this stuff.
Yeah.
So how do I understand the business that can empower me to do that?
So what was rec in its infancy?
Yeah.
Stages? Yeah.
So, early on, my group of friends was always in we're in parking lots, freestyling, and just trying to find spots for us to do our thing. And then eventually we got to a point where we're trying to play the pseudo management role to a lot of our, musician friends, hip hop artists, singers. And we couldn't get no looks, right? Couldn't get on the Live Nation stages, realized we couldn't afford to keep going in all the studios. And at that time, we decided to say, fuck it, let's use the resources we have. And my business partner, Dave, and I, we built our first company back in 2012, and it was called Broad Street Music Group. Right? So Broad Street Music Group was specifically a production company. We did two things. We threw events, and we made content for artists. And we did
some of your highlights
at Broad Street Music Group.
Yeah.
So back then the highlights were, through our first sold out show in a basement, in North Philly for a group called Ground Up and Chitty Bang, right? So hitting things like that. But then, I'd say the later and almost like the finale of what Broad Street Music Group helped us accomplish was we were still under the brand name Broad Street Music Group when we went to South by Southwest for the first time and created Philly's first ever official Philadelphia showcase down there.
Okay.
Right? And then literally right after that next fall, we pivoted from Broad Street Music Group to Rec Philly.
What year timeline sort of?
Yeah, so we're talking 2014,
okay.
2015 era. So maybe it was like the spring of 2015, something like that. Yeah. 2014, 2015, we throw this show. Yeah. Broad Street Music Group, and then we also collaborated with a group called What Scene. They were moving around at the time in Philly. And headlining show, co-headlined Freeway and Lil Uzi Vert.
Oh, that's hard.
Right, back when I could pay Uzi. I can't even tell you how much I paid him for that show, but it was, no one will ever get him for that amount today, obviously, yeah. Right? But yeah, those were some of the things we were doing, man. And I think what really helped us rise in notoriety was when we were throwing shows, whether it was a showcase or whether it was a full-on concert, I think the professionalism stuck out early. Right? You tell an artist, yo, you're going to go on at 10 o'clock. You're going on at 10 o'clock, right? And I didn't understand this at the time, but that was rare, right? Because if, you're moving around to some of these, you see all these shows where some of these, janky promoters, might I call them, just to name it what it is. It's like they do all these things, but they're not really in service of the art, right, of the artist, and they're damn sure not in service of the experience of the consumer and the fan, right? So our name stuck out right away because artists were like, yo, I love working with you guys. How do I continue to do that? But yeah, that run was really special. A bunch of sold out shows.
Cool. You pivot to rec, and in the infancy stages of rec, what was it? Because now it's like, sort of, everyone knows it as, a place where you come in and create and, you put your work in. There's also sort of the, the agency side, so the activation side. But what was it at that point when you pivoted in 2015? Yeah,
so the pivot really came from this understanding that when we were in Broad Street Music Group, we were throwing 4 and 5 shows a week at one point, right? Just murdering it. We threw a couple hundred shows in a span of 2 years. And what was killing me was the fact that we were putting artists on stages where they would body their set. People would love it, but they didn't have the foresight or maybe the know-how to convert that potential fan into a paying customer, right? They weren't bringing the merch out, right? They weren't collecting emails. They weren't doing these things that I'm just like, what good is it worth to you if you crush it, but you don't actually convert people, right? And then the second thing was there was this really big misconception that, really a narrative that people were believing that it was like, if I'm in Philly, but I actually want to take my career to the next level, I got to run to New York or I got to run to LA to be successful, right? Which to me was never true, right? I've seen tons of people build careers, from Philly, and of course people travel and things like that, but it's not like you got to run away, right? So for me, it was all about, well, why do people think they got to run, right? And
historically, that's not even true. We could go back to Mama's Boy,
boom,
Kenny Gamble,
boom,
those guys, and that's just to name a couple, but there was such a deep history of people doing big business in music outside and in Philly.
And that's how I was thinking about it, right? I'm like, I'm seeing all these waves of really talented, artists and collectives doing these things. So I'm like, I don't know why people believe that you can't do it now, knowing that since then the ability to do this independently is way higher, right? So for me, it was like, well, what's missing that folks believe that this is true, and what kind of environment or ecosystem could I then create to dispel that, right? So the things that we were noticing that everyone was having challenges with was, and really even our own challenges was, yo, where do I go to get access to the resources I need, right? Because if you don't go to college, right, or even if you go to college and then you're out of college, you don't have access to those sort of tools that are in the TV studios at college or recording studio if your school happens to have a music business program or has a music program with a studio. So we're all figuring out, yo, where do we find the tools? I don't got the money to drop 12 grand on this camera.
A member comes in and wants to use the conference room, doesn't have a camera.
Yep.
What's the cost for the camera equipment?
Free. You could literally be like, I'm going to rent out the collab room, the conference room to do a little interview. I can come over here, rent out 2-3 cameras, rent out all the lights I need, the microphones, no charge, no extra charge to you, right? It's crazy, bro. We're changing the game, man. Like, when else could you come in and get, $4,000 worth of equipment and borrow it for nothing, right? Because you pay $50 a month to be a part of what we're doing. Second, I think, if we're going to be honest, it was a strategy, right? I'm like, I was always a nerd. My boys were always been like, nerds that would dig for the information on YouTube, right? But, back 2012, 2013, it's like, where do we go to really find the right information, and where do we go to see who's having conversations about what it looks like to build a sustainable and a scalable business around art? So it was like, yo, this is missing here. And then third, I think a lot of folks can attest to this. Philly is a decent sized city, but for real, I look at it like a big town, right? But within that town, and even within the creative community, at that time, it just felt so siloed, right? These sort of artists and these sort of people hung out in these venues. These people hung out at these spaces, right? But there wasn't, in my opinion, my vantage point as a kid who's a social butterfly, can move in all these different circles. I've always been that kind of guy. I'm like, yo, oh, you need this thing? Oh, that's crazy because this person over here has that thing. That's all they have though, and they need this that you have, right? But there weren't conversations happening. So I'm like, yo, what can we do to actually like allow the community to galvanize in like a much more effective and efficient way, right? In a meaningful way. So that's what it came down to. It was like, okay, our vision for Rec way back then was, how do we design some sort of network that would connect people to the tools they needed, or the information, the mentorship, or, you know, just the community in an effective way.
But in a way, even sort of creating a community that really didn't exist because of sort of the silos, right? The different sections. It was, there was really no continuity amongst, I would say, just a general creative. You know, I think at the top, there's always going to be people, if you're doing business at a certain level, you know, in a place, you're going to connect with the other people doing business at that level. But for everyone else, which is, you know, the vast majority, how are we connecting with that person next to you who might might make beats, or, you know, might design logos?
And I think what you said there is kind of one thing that I always thought about, that sometimes folks don't. A lot of times we have this mentality of, oh, someone's got to put me on, right? And you always want to network and get connected to the people who are the plugs. But sometimes the most effective networking is networking across, right? How do the people to the left and the right of me, how do we exchange skills and resources so that way we can both raise up? And I don't think the community, at least on a grand scale in Philadelphia, was doing that from my vantage point. So I said, yo, how do we do that? How do we find the people who get it, want it, and can do it, and let's find a way to bring them together? And then fast forward a little bit, maybe about a year, I had the epiphany, and I was like, oh, space, right? Because that's where the resources can live, that's where we can have and house those conversations for learning, and then that's where we can build the consistency and community and the continuity of the community. Because before then, bro, before this, right, like we're, again, 9th and Market, Center City, Philadelphia, right, in the heart of...
the best part. This is literally the best place you could probably get it.
100%. It couldn't be better. Shout out to the universe. Shout out to God, right, who was on our side.
Trains.
Right?
All that.
But before this, it was like we had to be under the L, right, in a ducky, seedy spot, or we were, you know, in warehouses. Not that there's anything wrong with that, right, because that's where we come from, you know, but...
let's even dive into that, the North Philly space. So before, you know, anybody who doesn't really know, I saw the trajectory of Rec, you know, for a while you guys were in, you know, it was a former glass
window factory.
The
window factory.
You know, right in the Badlands, basically, which is a neighborhood in North Philly where it's like it's just infamous for, you know, bad things. And, you know, I used to go there. It was just a unique. It was a very, you know, for me, I think that was really one of Rec's finest moments, you know, in a weird way, because it was right in the where it all goes down.
Who's in the mix?
In the mix. And I think a lot of the population that consumed that studio and the workshops were also from that community and that creed, which is like important, super important.
Absolutely.
But I think I want to talk about the development of that space very quickly, just because I think you started and you probably had that idea, but in reality, you're trying to get these resources, but you personally probably don't have those resources.
I didn't.
Right. So how did you sort of cultivate that space and that community and build it out to what it was?
So I think the blessing of it all, man, is I just got to solve my own problem, right? And I think for entrepreneurs, that's the best place to be. Because, again, me and my boy, you know, me and my man Leonzo at that time, we didn't have the resources to help fuel his career, right? Nothing. And honestly, you know, what I did have, though, was a little bit of knowledge on, like, marketing and you know, event planning at that time. But it came down to a point in time where, you know, I was like, yo, I'm ready to quit my job, and really, I believe in this idea. I'm going to go all in. Don't have the resources. So I said, all right, how do I just lower my expenses? People don't know this, man, but I actually lived out of that warehouse for a couple of years, bro. I was clean homeless, right? I wasn't like out here on the streets, but it was like, yo, I wasn't supposed to be living there. But we thugged it out for 2 years, knowing that if we could just design the environment for ourselves and program ourselves to be who we wanted to be, that would be what we needed, right? So that's kind of how we got to the Window Factory, where just literally on a personal tip, it was about me, Leonzo, you know, and Dave was supporting in different ways, you know, as we were rocking out, still doing Broad Street Music Group and transitioning to Rec. We did it for ourselves. So we got into that warehouse. I put up my backdrop for video production. We built him a studio. And then after folks knew that we were there and we're inviting our homies through, they never wanted to leave, right? And that kind of clicked for me. I'm like, yo, like,
that's the origins of sort of rec.
That is the origins of rec.
Yeah,
real talk.
like, right?
That is it, man. And it's like, all right, people start pulling up, and I'm like, yo, y'all, dead ass though, like, if y'all want to be here, y'all might as well just throw up on this rent, and we can build this space out.
Right.
So we started doing that, man. And
I think people kill you for that, almost. I think people kill you guys for not having the full idea at the beginning. Yeah. And as you developed over time, you know, this product comes out, but like people sort of wanted you to have it figured out,
right?
In the infancy stages.
Well, one, it's like that's not really how it goes. Right. But I will say this: I do remember fondly the very first time we were ready to announce rec to the world, called a town hall. Like I've always been about this collaboration, bro. And I think the beauty for me is like I was naive enough to be able to be like, you know what? I'm just gonna get everybody I know in a room. I'm gonna tell them the idea. We're all gonna support it, and we're gonna go.
Yeah,
right.
I've heard about this town hall.
Yeah, so I called the town hall. We had probably about 100 people in the room, and literally, it's so funny when I think about the slide deck. But I showed them a mock-up or a little render I put together that just showed this is a one room. They're gonna put a backdrop here. We're gonna put a studio here, and we're all going to pitch up to make this possible, and we're all gonna grow together through that, and the community will be able to exist. That was the vision pretty early on, right? So as we're talking about it, again, it was more network based. I didn't know how important the space was. I was talking about the community and let's build this for it. But yeah, man, and one of the
what happened at that town hall? Because you know, for me, you know, I feel like a lot of the creators I've talked to, that was like a pivotal moment in sort of the trajectory of maybe a quasi or semi maybe fractured relationship with some people, some people in the creative community in Philly. What happened at that town hall?
Yeah, so what happened was, man, we laid the vision out and we said, hey, this is what we see that are challenges for us and we believe for all of us in this room, and this is where we're gonna go. And I think, you know, what came of that was some people saw it, understood it, and was like, yo, I wanna buy into this. They bought into that and said, yo, I'm gonna do it. And other people, I think, came from it with a perspective of, who are you to think that you should be the one to do this, right? Some people came from a perspective of, it's already been done and tried, it can't work, right? But to me, I'm like, yo, y'all don't get it, because what I knew at that time was, this is right when Uber's first coming out, right? And Uber's becoming a thing, and I'm like, yo, you don't understand that the fastest growing transportation company in the world owns no cars, right? You don't understand that the fastest growing hospitality company in the world owns no property, therefore, resource sharing is a thing now because technology supports it in a way it wasn't possible before, right? And I studied this stuff, right? I studied economics, so sometimes I feel like, I'll just put it this way, man, the vision was mine to have, right? One way or another, and I sometimes forget that other people don't think the way I think, and they couldn't see the vision because it wasn't their vision to see. And then I think sometimes people, you know, ego gets in the way, and then they start, you know. It's crazy, man. Like, really, the whole idea of the space is this. It was like, us as creatives, we get inspired, right? That inspiration hits, and then the next challenge is, how do I get access to the tools that I need to actually execute that idea? Or how do I get access to the people? And most times, unfortunately, the time that passes between ideation and execution makes it so we're not even passionate about the thing anymore by the time we can pull it off. So this vision of this space was, how do we shrink the time between ideation, execution, and also monetization? So when we get the ideas, boom, let's get it, let's make it.
Let's get it out to the people.
Exactly. Yep, that's exactly it.
You know, at the same time, too, it's like a lot of you guys were all young.
Bro, when I built Broad Street Music Group, Dave and I were like 21, 22.
So it's like, you know, a lot of it is so personal, and a lot of it.
And let me say this, I gotta say this too. Like, the other thing that happened at that town hall was, there was a very clear energy that we weren't asking for permission, right? We had invited people to it, right? But we were like, this is what we're gonna do. And we really want everyone to be a part of this because that's the way it's gonna work.
Double and dues anyway.
Right, but I didn't go to the quote unquote OGs, I didn't go to the quote unquote gatekeepers and say, hey, we really need you for this, right?
We'll talk about this later. You
right?
Got me going,
yeah, and I think that rubbed people the wrong way, right? It was who are you to do this without, you know, checking in or asking. And I'm like, whoa, what are we talking about? Like, I already solved my own problem. Don't you guys want a solution? Isn't that what we're here for?
Yeah.
So.
That's dope. So, the rec space in North Philly was like, you know, I still feel like it's still, you know, a pivotal landmark for you guys, and, you know, in a way, the creative community.
Space changed my life and the lives of others.
But in a lot of ways, you were working with nothing. Like,
Straight up.
I don't mean that in a disrespectful way,
No.
but like if y'all go to the space, they turn it into a creative and cool environment where people can go and say, oh, this is cool, this is interesting.
100%.
But, you know, how did you sort of build that sort of culture and community where it was like, we don't have the resources, but we gonna make the resources?
Yeah, straight up, man. Look, we were there, 4th floor walk up, no heat, no AC.
Yep.
We didn't have a lot of bread. The studios, we had Scarlett interfaces, right? Something that you could have at your crib. But one of the things I think people trusted about us is that when we said we would do something, we did.
Right.
Every time. All the things I ever say, yo, we're going to build a space. We did it. I say, yo, we're going to go build a space in Central City. We did it. We're going to go to South by. We did it. We're going to go to South by multiple times. We did it. Right. And at a certain point, when you just look at the stats and you realize that, like, oh, these guys are executing on a high level. Right. And then you look around and there's only but a handful of other people that are executing any of the things. It's like, yo, well, I guess I should hedge my bets and say, yo, I think I should be down for this.
And another thing was, like, you brought in people. Like, there was Johnny Lee. You know, I remember panel discussions with me, you know, on there, and you know, there's a sort of wall that you brought in people from Vidya, and you know, a whole bunch of other companies. Yeah. And it was like bringing a real business to, like, the creative community. In a lot of ways, I felt like it was too advanced, almost for a city like Philadelphia, and that's not a disrespect to the creative city, but it's more so, I thought it was just like, I would want to go to those panels. Right.
But, and again, context, we're in 9th and Dolphin, right? The same place where Joey Jihad got knocked out at, right? Out front. But we're bringing industry executives.
Yeah, like real industry executives.
Real knowledge, real folks. But yeah, man, I think that's just like the gift that we have. I think even when we didn't have cash, we had reputation that could allow us to go and build meaningful collaborations. And that's what it's about, man. I think, you know, a lot of folks are at a point where they can create in their crib, in their basement, or in their room. But what gets lost is you don't accidentally run into a potential collaborator in your room, right. I hope, right? So for us, it's, yo, me and Karl doing this interview, we walked out, Zeke Burst was in the studio, right? Or, you know, Johnny Montina stopped by to drop off some merch right here in this space. Right. Now you're running into folks, you're building rapport, building relationships. Yeah. That's what community is about.
I love it.
You know, right. Independent doesn't mean alone is our, like, trademark saying, and that's really because I understand the power of collaboration and understanding mutual value exchange. Right. Right. Like, I could actually create and package up and articulate the value of why someone from one of the top distribution companies to come into a spot at 9th and Dolphin and speak to 40 young creatives that wanted the information.
And it was cool too because, like, I think Rec Philly gets a lot of hate for maybe feeling corporate-y or feeling like it's some sort of entity is not connected. But if you go to the events or you went to the panel discussions, like, it wasn't that.
Right.
Like, you know, I remember Gianni Lee coming in and everyone in that, not everyone, but, like, I would say 85% of that audience was black. You know, cannabis was being consumed. You know, people were drinking, but it was a lot of people from the inner city creed and culture that probably would never go to a conversation about connecting commerce to the culture.
Right.
So I was more so like, yeah, you know, I hear some of the bigger discussions, maybe, but like,
they just don't get it.
Yeah, kind of come out, maybe.
And honestly, I just think it's because in the quote-unquote creative scene, structure is foreign. And what's foreign is scary, right? But at the end of the day, man, that's the only way it works. And for real, like, you know, kind of taking a different direction, it's like, I tweeted this the other day, it was like, yo, it took a system to create the status quo, right? Everything that's happening that makes it so motherfuckers are getting raped for the art, right? And not making any money, yada, yada. These are systems at play that put us where we are. Right. So it's gonna take a system, right? Not the same one, not something similar, but a system nonetheless to change it, right? So for me, it was like, yeah, of course, I wanna create those one-off moments like you're talking about with Gianni Lee where that's as pure as it's gonna get, man, in a meaningful way. But to do that consistently, right? Because I'm not going to say people haven't created great cultural moments before, right? Because they have. But we've been able to do it so consistently over time because I was able to develop a system that makes that work. Right. Right? So that's what it is for us. And I think sometimes...
9th and Dolphin helped.
That's where we built the system.
Right. But it's funny because that as unpolished as it might have been, the unpolished nature of it allowed you to sort of allow Red Philly to sort of capitalize on some of these moments. I feel like I walk in, I was like, this is like interesting. This is like dope. Like people be like, yo, this is like kind of.
Bro,
Bro,
I had Tory Lanez pull up to Ninth and Dolphin, record records, right? He came, pulled up, recorded some records. My homie Ben recorded them.
Shout out to Ben Thomas.
Shout out to Ben Thomas, the legend, right? And when Tory pulled up, he was like, yo, am I good here? I'm like, yeah, you good. You good. Let's do it. But being able to be legit enough to understand how you make those things come to fruition, someone's life was changed because he came in that space, right? Ended up connecting him to a videographer homie. This was on a Thursday. He had a show at ASAP Ferg on a Friday. Tory was in there looking at the space we built. He's getting inspired by what it looks like. He's like, damn, I'll shoot a visual here. You got any shooters? Made a quick call. My homie was right there. Plugged them in. Next day, he's like, yo, I need a shooter for our concert. You got somebody? Sent him over. The very next day, he asked for us to send him, packs his bags, goes on a world tour with Tory Lanez. Right? But again, if we didn't have a system and an infrastructure to know how we can execute on opportunities, it doesn't work. And that's the reason why I think sometimes people don't grow, even if they're super talented, because they don't have the discipline and the structure, to actually make these things manifest. And I think, I used to even think early on when I was building Rec, I'm like, we're all creatives, we don't want structure. But I realized that's a lie. Creatives crave structure. We just want a structure that was built for us. Right? Not having to fit into someone else's box.
You're not going to achieve a level of success if you're not conforming to some sort of ideology and structure and sort of like attention to detail, waking up early, eating right, putting good stuff in you. You're not going to.
There's inputs, inputs and outputs. You can't get the outputs without the inputs. So it's like the idea of I'm just gonna free flow and like never have any structure and then I'm gonna get to my goal. It's almost like laughable to think that way because in my experience, nothing manifests like that.
Well, I mean, the great ones just don't operate at that level. So it's for me, that's just all I needed to know, right?
And honestly, that same level I did when you said the great ones operate at that level or in that way. I was operating that level when I was still dumb broke.
Yeah, me too.
Right? But the vision allowed me to say, oh, I know, but I need that structure. I need to build a strong team. And I think when I started doing that, people couldn't handle it. They were intimidated by it because they were like, oh, you're trying to be corporate. I'm like, no, I'm trying to be successful.
Right. So getting back to it, how did you sort of package sort of that culture, what was happening at Ninth and Dolphin? How did you turn that into sort of raising, a lot of money and then getting into the 10,000 square foot space we're in today? What was that? What were those conversations like? And then, an ancillary question is, did you ever feel like you were compromising on, the culture part just to get that commerce? Sure.
So over here, this is one of 4 recording studios we have on the premises. Still putting the final touches here, but this is, our A room. So think about it like the #1 studio, in our space. Went up to New York, hollered at the guys at Solid State Logic, which creates like all these like really dope boards and the hardware. So they said, yo, we love what you're doing. We want to gift you, this console. It's a $40,000 mixer, that they say, yo, I just want to give it to you for the love because we know how important it is to invest in the community you're creating, right? And that's what we're good at. We're good at packaging up and articulating our value so folks want to be a part of what we're doing. So in the first part of that question, man, it was all about, one, understanding the value of who we are as people, right? Who we are as artists, founders, creators, we're creators of culture. And I knew very early on the fact that we could just fill a room with people that look like us, that think like us, right? These young, ambitious, smart, influential people, that's super valuable to other brands and other people, right? So I learned early on how to do that, how to negotiate sponsorships, package it up to drive their needs and our needs, right? When we decided that we wanted to raise money to scale, for us it was, okay, let's go and do this. And obviously there's a lot of sacrifice that comes with bringing on investors and things like that. But the thing I'm most proud of is we didn't go and get traditional VC money. So a lot of the things that usually need to be sacrificed didn't for us because I was able to, and when I say I'm just gonna start saying we because it's me, but also I have a team, right? A really strong, incredibly smart team. So when we move and we do these things, we did it in a way where we're like, here is the vision first and foremost. It's about empowering creative entrepreneurs. So if you're not for that, the conversation doesn't go forward. So it started there. And then it was like, okay, and here's how it's valuable for you. And I could really just show the need. And Ninth and Dolphin helped us prove the need, because when we have 500 members in North Philly walking up 4 flights of stairs and no heat, no AC, this and that, but people are showing up, and I can show them the engagement rates and how often people are coming, it's like, yo, clearly people want what we have. So if we were in a more accessible spot, we had these sort of resources, we could go from 500 members to 2,500 members.
Right.
So that was how it was packaged up. And, you know, I believe that the way we did it, we didn't have to take any cultural sacrifices. You know, there was no, we didn't have to take those sacrifices. That's not who we are. That's not what the mission or the vision is of our company.
Right.
And I think as a leader, one thing we've done well is making sure that everyone on our staff and everyone on our cap table understands why we're here, and that's to really help facilitate a culture shift from, hey, I'm an artist, I like doing these things, to, hey, these are creative entrepreneurs.
Right.
And when we talk about these investors and these, you know, these folks who came in and supported us with fundraising, they know what's happening when it comes to, you know, incubator spaces, right? In the tech space, incubators are not foreign, right?
Yeah, few and far, but yeah, there's a bunch of them.
And we got to a space where we could help them understand that, like, yo, I'm not just singing songs with artists.
Right.
We're building cultural businesses.
Right.
And they understood that, and they said, yo, we're leaving money on the table if we don't support this.
Right.
And that's how I think that win-win gets created.
Right. And then also it's just sort of like, there's sort of a lot of times culture and things that might not make money in a traditional sense make you money, because there's the influence, right? Like influence is key. How do you get influence, right? You could be a model with 10 million followers. You can have influence in your own way.
Sure.
Like you could point people into a certain direction. You know, Kylie Jenner in a way is an A&R in that sense, right?
For
she
sure.
plays a song, and you know, all of a sudden that person.
They're a national consciousness.
Yeah, they're national. You know, so that's just where it is. Influence. It comes from a different way. How do you? Something maybe in Rex's vision. How do you? And you know, I don't want you to overstep. But how do you make sure that other people in the creative community eat as well?
Yeah.
Like some of we mentioned Johnny.
Yeah.
So guys that traditionally left, you know, right?
Yeah.
Guys like Johnny Lee's basically Brooklyn. Right?
Yeah.
And he's a crucial player in Philly, right?
Yeah.
He's done everything. He's done a lot of cool stuff. But he had to leave. I felt like he felt like he had to leave.
Yeah, so you know, folks like that, you know, that have already left, I think are one conversation. But to answer your question, I think we should focus on the people who are still here, right, and doing it, and like they're currently a part of the community. One of the things, we don't talk a lot about this, but one of the things I'm most proud of is over the past 2.5 years, we've put $1.5 million directly into the hands of creatives here in Philly, right? And we do that because our model, right, we have this whole creative incubator, but we also have a boutique creative agency. So when we go out and we're working with brands like Lyft or Red Bull, and they're paying us to throw events, they're paying us to book talent, they're paying us to create content, we go right back over into our incubator and we say, hey, let's put this on our jobs and opportunity board, right? We're democratizing opportunity, which wasn't happening before. But we put it there, and then folks say, yo, I want to put my hat in the ring for this gig. And through doing that, we're I don't even like to use grandiose, you know, like language, but it's like we're changing lives, man. I know people that literally I can say we've over the course of 1 year put $20,000 in their pocket from rec alone, right?
What do you say to people who feel like, you know, it might not be democratized? Like, you know, there was already sort of, you know, you might have put it up, but you were going to give it to that person anyway.
I would ask them to say, show me a member who's been a member for over a year, who's come to our workshops, right, and are engaging, they're in the space, that feels that way. Because I don't believe they exist. Because that's what it is. That's like saying, you know, we play football and you're fucking riding the bench, and then you're telling your family, hey, coach never wants to put me in, he has his favorites. And then they ask you how hard you're going in the drills, and you say, well, I'm not gonna play anyway, so I don't really do the drills. Right. It's not how it works, bro. You know, it's a gym. So show the fuck up, put in the work. And for us, right, we have a responsibility to make the clients happy. So we're always gonna book the best person for the job. Right. So if you're not the best person for the job, you're not the best person for the job. So we need to figure out other jobs for you, right? Or you need to figure out other jobs for you. But you got to think through it that way, right?
And then getting to, it's funny
because look, it's trust, man. Like, and we want to book people we trust.
Right. Well, I mean, off the record, me and you talk a lot about sort of just people maybe not even being ready, right? Like,
yeah.
And that's okay. Like, you might fumble a bag, or you might give it to somebody you trust because you feel like that person is ready to sort of execute on on a plan that involves a lot of different players and stakeholders. So I think that's one thing to acknowledge, right? It's like maybe I don't feel like some of the people that maybe raise their hand and say this is my opportunity and I deserve it. Maybe some of those people aren't ready. Do you ever feel like that?
A lot of times. I feel like most of the people who say that aren't ready.
Yeah, aren't ready.
And the fact that they have qualms about what they do and don't get booked for shows that they don't know the business, therefore they're not ready.
Right.
Right? And the thing is with Rec, it's so funny when people do that because it's like we're literally creating the resource set for you to improve your skills, but also giving the little strategies to how to build your business better.
Right.
So it's like, if you're not putting in the work and you're not getting better, it's like laughable to say like, oh, they didn't pick me.
Right.
Because everything we teach here is about putting yourself on. So the people that we usually book are the people who are already doing the work. And then we say, hey, it would be really great for us to collaborate on this, right? They say, if your car breaks down on the highway, if you want someone to stop and help you, you shouldn't just sit there. You should get out and push it.
Right.
Because someone's way more likely to then come and help you push.
Right.
So that's kind of how I think about everything we're talking about, man. And we book the people who are already getting out and pushing. You know, we're the only independently owned Live Nation venue in the city.
I was actually here for a party.
Mm-hmm.
It was good.
It was a good job, man.
I was here for a party. So, you know, I think it's very, very cool that a lot of things can get executed from seed to final product.
Yeah.
Here.
That's it, man.
Right?
The whole
I have a song
scope.
idea. I can record the song.
Get connected to a producer if you ain't got one.
Exactly, even before even recording the
right.
song, you know, all the intricacies of putting this song together, I can establish and execute on. Fine, we can record the song. I can get information about how to monetize the song.
While your song's being mixed, you're like, you know what? Let me go in the visual lab and get the cover art shot.
Right. Let's do the cover art. Let me connect with a designer or something like that.
Yo, I shot a video, but I can't, edit on my laptop because it's not strong enough to process the footage.
Yeah.
Editing station, boom. I got access to everything I need on that tip, right?
Sort of the last tip is, hopefully I can get on stage.
That's it.
You know what I'm saying?
And then even further than that, I'm on stage, I killed it, and I want to sell my merchandise so I can sell it out in the retail store.
So, for any confusion out in the universe, what is Rec Philly?
Yeah, so let's make it super clear. So what is Rec Philly? Rec Philly is an ecosystem that exists to empower creatives, specifically independent creatives. And what that looks like is we've built what we call a gym membership for creative people. And the value proposition is we provide resources, and the resources physically, let me just make it super plain. We have a space that has all the tools you need as a creative, right?
I ain't gonna hold y'all. The space is pretty fire.
It's fire.
It's like recording studios.
4 recording studios, podcast studio, dance studio. We have the Live Nation venue, right? We're the only independently owned and operated Live Nation venue in the city. Right. We've got an editing station with 2 supercomputers in it with all of the Adobe suite. We've got a retail store, so all of our members that create physical products can sell to the 30 million people a year that'll walk through the gallery, right?
Side note, who the hell made the pink John with the black on? That is one of the hardest shirts. I'm actually going to have to cop that.
Yeah?
It's like a polo shirt with a pink collar and a black and white. We're going to go out there.
Yeah.
We're going to go out there and see
yeah,
that.
I'll see. It's either BWC or you're talking about Urbane, who's from South Jersey.
Urbane.
There it is.
Urbane.
Yeah.
That's right.
But he's fire, right? It was already selling before he came to us. Right. And then we said, hey, we would love to sell you in the store. Now we're going to give you distribution to 30 million people, right? Mm-hmm. It's not about I don't even got to feed into it. But yeah, so that's that. So it's the resources. All the creative tools are here, right? But then on top of that, we developed an educational program as well that really is about how do I get paid to be myself as a creative? How do I build a brand? How do I build an audience and engage that audience and then learn how to build the revenue streams to be sustainable and scalable? So we teach all that. All of our educational resources are free for our members, right? So we're lowering the barrier to entry to studios and tools. We're lowering the barrier to the education. And then really on top of that, we've also developed a lot of really awesome tools specifically to connect our members. Things like a directory, right? Hey, I got a show this weekend and my photographer bailed. our members can go on our app, type the word photographer, and 40 people pop up that I can direct message. Same thing for the jobs and opportunity board. Boom, we got a gig coming up, we're gonna put that there, and if you see that, you can just go and book it, and you can put your name in the hat and potentially land that gig. I remember when I was a videographer where I knew I was talented enough to do certain gigs, but I didn't get them because I just didn't know the people who needed my services. Right, so things like the job and opportunity board just change the way that dynamic works. But that's what it is. We are specifically an ecosystem, and that ecosystem is the space, our app, and our community.
Right.
And in my opinion, man, what we're doing is revolutionary. It's changing the way a creative operates at a fundamental level.
Right. And, you know, hopefully one of the things I've sort of taken note of, you know, we're in this space right now, which is sick. And, you know, just coming in here, it's a Sunday. We're shooting this on a Sunday, and I walked in and there was like, you know, multiple younger, you know, African-American men and women like doing business on a Sunday.
That's it.
You know, hopefully it raises the level of business people try to do here, right, in the city of Philadelphia. You see this beautiful space that's available to you for a relatively minute cost, right?
It's a very accessible cost.
Well, let's be honest.
And I was intentional about that.
There's co-working spaces, and I'm big in the co-working market, and I know the co-working space market. You know, there's a lot of co-working spaces. You know, $200 a month is probably more likely what you're going to pay. And
and our membership starts out at $50 a month.
Right.
And it was specifically designed for us.
Right.
So not only can you come and co-work, but then you have access to the studios, right? Then you have access to all these other amenities.
Which to me is like,
it's nuts.
Where's the debate or anything about that, right? Like,
right, like it's too
that's just like what are we on right now? Like, you know, there's actually a party coming into the city giving people access to stuff that wasn't available, and it's not about, you know, quote unquote, in Philly culture, dick riding. You know, it's not or showing certain, you know, it's not about any of that. It's about community building and collaborating. And if you do have a problem, me and you sort of talked offline about this, like being, making sure it's not interpersonal, and more so not forgetting that it's like, you know, at the end of the day, it's about impact in the city.
It's about impact.
So whenever it becomes me versus you, or whoever it is, right? It's like, I'm always like, this is like, we're losing. I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
I don't care enough, like, because I didn't come in.
It's way bigger than just you versus me.
Yeah,
right?
like whatever happened between us can go. It's, you know, it's impact.
Rec was built to prove a thesis that I have, and my theory is if you give a young, talented creative access to resources, the right strategies, and the right opportunities, they will win. You know, chill spots over here. You can just pull up. Another recording studio there. Yeah, these are actually going to be private meditation rooms. So we're going to install doors that close, get in here, take phone calls, private little work desk if you want to just bring your laptop, right?
That's awesome.
Yeah, just everything we need, man, you know, and as someone who was leading the design and architecture of the space, like, I was just trying to be thoughtful for, like, what do we need? So we put all of that there, and then none of the bullshit that we don't. And unfortunately, the way our system has been set up in America, we rarely get access to all those things.
Right.
So I said, yo, $50 a month, here it is, let's grind.
So
let's go. And I know what the results have shown so far.
All right. What do you say to the people, you know, maybe the past 2 or 3 years who say, oh, you know, rec might be late, you know, they haven't helped sort of cultivate some of the talents that have come out of Philly in the past 3 or 4 years or so. What do you say to that? What do you say, like, when someone's like, you know, they're not, you know, rec's not doing that? Yeah.
I mean, I think it's all about context, right? And I think we're just getting started.
Right.
You know, like, I think some people come out and they have these timelines for their businesses or whatever, and success happens in 2 years, right? No, like, when I signed up to begin this company, I knew this was a 10-year journey to get where we needed to go, because the problem I'm solving is humongous, right? So for me, the fact that, you know, it only took us, you know, our membership program has only been around for 3 years.
Right.
So the fact that it's only taken us 3 years to now build a facility that most of us couldn't dream of, right? It's like, what are you saying?
You're allowed to say that. Like,
yeah, so it's like, we're just getting started. So for me, I say wait and see. Because I know I've already changed lives. I know that, you know, more than over 60 members of ours have been able to use our resource to go and quit their jobs that they hated to be able to follow their creativity full time. So I'd say, hey, what stats are we measuring by, right? Because if you say, hey, what artist did rec put into national consciousness, that hasn't been our focus, right? This isn't just a space for rappers or musicians. This is a space for the whole creative economy.
Rec isn't a record label.
Rec is absolutely not a record label.
Rec
right?
isn't a management company.
We're absolutely not a management company.
Okay. Rec isn't a, there's a bunch of different things.
That's the things they say. And honestly, and it's good that you point that out, because people are trying to hold us to the standards and the successes of management companies and labels, but that's not what we do. Right. We don't own any of the rights or whatever, no ownership over what people create here. Right. And we don't want to, because we're teaching people how to have ownership over their own futures. Right. So it's like, I think our model's so new that people don't know how to judge us for success. So I just kind of ignore a lot of the things people say.
So let's talk about some sort of like the education and the materials provided that you guys, obviously give to your members for a small price, $50, and it's a sliding scale. I know I'm on a panel, I think January 24th. There's Kanye Taylor, Frank Santinelli, who's a very good friend, and
who
myself.
Who was on staffer to Diddy himself, right? Bad Boy.
Frank Santinelli is
artist manager.
One of the few guys in Philly who have the ability to sort of do work beyond Philly.
Absolutely.
Like, in the industry.
Absolutely.
So Frankie's a real talent.
Yourself, you know your resume, right? Danye, very successful marketing strategist, right? Built brands. Now is the lead marketing or running marketing for Ethica and things like that.
So something like that. What's like what if you're not a member? Can you go to those? Can you buy?
Yeah, pull up $10 on Eventbrite, right? But it's free for our members. Because again, I don't want to make it inaccessible. And do I think the value of that panel is way higher than $10? Yes. But I want this to be accessible to folks. But at the same time, I want to make sure there's an incentive for you to understand that getting the membership's the smart thing to do. Right?
Yeah, look, Dave, don't get mad at me. The rest of the Rec Philly team don't get mad at me. But let's be honest, it's like a game of conversion. Y'all got this new spot. It's like, you let someone come in for $10.
And then you look around, you're like, I'm bugging.
You're like, all right,
you're like, for $50, I could have access to all this for free, and these studios, and this.
Fuck it, I'll quit my job tomorrow.
It's bonkers, bro. It's really bonkers. And that's why, it's the funniest thing is when we do get criticism, and I don't want to make this whole thing about the criticism we get of Rec, but I do love that we can talk about this. Most of the people who criticize us have never stepped foot in the space. Right. And because what we're doing is so innovative and so revolutionary, you cannot understand it until you step foot. Because unfortunately, so many of us, myself included, come from such a scarcity mindset because of where we come from, right? That's just what it is, because resources were not there. So when I tell you, this is about resource sharing, this is about community building, if you've never had resources, you've never been a part of a thriving community, you can't even fathom what it feels like to walk in here and feel the energy of how Scarlett addresses you when you get to the front door, how people
Scarlett's a legend.
Legend, bro. What's up, Scarlett? That's the goat right here, yo. That's the GOAT.
She holds it down, yo.
Yeah,
it's
so
like the glue.
Scarlett is the queen of our membership program, yo. So she makes sure our members are taken care of, things run smooth, And a lot of my staff members are legends, bro, for real. But when you walk back here and you just feel the energy of productivity, it's like if you've never been in the environment, you can't even guess. So I can't blame you for getting it fucked up.
Right.
But then I challenge you to come in, do it all, and then tell me that you don't think what we're doing is just.
Future Rec. We talked about sort of the past, how it came about, this new space, which I think we might even need to, before we even get into the future of it, let's talk about what this space is now, and then and then you project, right?
Okay. So currently what this space is, it's just a beautiful co-creating space. Right. Folks come through, they create, they build their business here. So I'll talk a little bit about kind of what the future of Rec is on the long term, and then I'll bring it back to what are the next big things coming.
Yeah.
Right? Even some things I've never even said on record before.
Courtroom exclusive.
Let's go, right, let's talk. So, a lot of folks, they think, Rec Philly, this is just a whole, just local thing, right? But for us, it's about galvanizing these local communities and the resources there to do things like this. But I know that we didn't just solve a Philly problem, right? We solved the problem of cities all across the world. So for me, it's about how do we put 30 rec rooms, right? That's what we call these places. How do we build 30 rec rooms across the country? how do we build 30 rec rooms across the world?
Yeah.
And I want to do that in less than 10 years.
Right.
So that's the vision for us, man. Like right now, we're perfecting the model over these next 6 months, and then right away, we're gonna raise another round, and we're gonna go to at least 2 to 3 other markets, right? Like Rec DC.
Raising another round, raising another capital, and you know, for sometimes I really do need to make sure that
my fault.
In the startup world, it's just like raising another round.
Yeah.
Raising another round of equity, capital. You're raising more money.
Yep.
And at the end of the day.
Yeah, our seed round, which is what they usually call the first round of capital you raise, we raised 3.5 million, which is a lot, right, for a seed round. But cheers to that, man. Yeah. Real talk. And moving forward for our Series A, we'll probably raise something, probably closer to 12 million, and we'll go and put a rec room in something like Rec DC, right? A Rec Austin, a Rec Atlanta. But after that, it's, let's go hit all these markets and make sure that, let's say you are a member in one city, you're building your business and you're building your audience online. My vision is to make sure that you as a creator have the confidence to go and tour, go touch the people in other cities, knowing that the resources are waiting there for you, the like-minded people are there waiting for you, so you can build your business without turning a deficit on your first tour, right? Which most people do for the first and second tour. So that's kind of the vision, right? I want to build this international, interdependent network of independent creatives. Right. That's like, I could pull up on my phone and I know who the littest videographers are across the world. Right. Anywhere I go, I'm good because there's a rec there. Right. That's the vision. But on the short term, one of the things I'm really excited about, and sorry, just that little context. This new space in Philadelphia opened up the end of last year. Right? So it opened December 1st of 2019.
Correct.
So we're
this is fresh. This is like we're in this.
We're a month and a half in. Right. A month and a half in, but I know what it is, man. I've already seen how people feel when they walk in the space, how they experience our programming.
I've been here 4 or 5 times, and each time I've came in and said,
right, you met somebody dope. Right. It felt good, right?
I was like, this is pretty interesting. This is like, wow.
And honestly, to me, I always I meditate on this. I'm just like, I can't believe this wasn't done before. Yeah. Right, but in the same vein, Ford should have built Uber, right? Universal should have built Rec, but they didn't have the foresight because they were so comfortable in the old model.
I don't even think. So this is where I'll fight you on Uber versus Ford, or Ford, sort of adopting Uber or Lyft as a concept. I think maybe makes more sense because they have cars that maybe go unused. They don't sell every car that's built. Yeah. Like they could have even gave them to people, and I think the Universal. I think they're almost conflicting models. What Universal Music does, and what Atlantic Records or a big record company does, and what you're trying to do are totally different things. Your model is literally giving people the tools to make better deals, make better art. Sort of empower themselves. Yeah. And historically, what I think a record label has done, and this isn't a sort of jab at anything or anybody, but we have to just look at the facts. Right. Historically, what a record label has done has sort of wanted you to not have that same sort of.
Of course, they wanted you to be dependent on them. Right.
So I almost feel like there's a direct. Conflict.
Yeah, and you're totally right. And I think for me, I was just trying to jump that to say they should have shifted their model from let me be exploitive to let me be empowering, and then win that way.
Because they have to. You don't want to be late.
But it's getting too late now, right? Yeah, so in 3 years when we have 4 recs across the country, and then it's like, okay, in 5 and 10 years we have them all over. You lost at that point, right? And obviously, there's a really big industry around recorded music that the labels have a grasp on. But as the internet keeps taking over radio and the power dynamics shifting, they're going to be with their tail between their legs. But whatever, that's that, right? I digress. But where we are right now, man, I'm really excited because what's happening is we've got over 700 members currently in this location. People are creating content all times of the night, every day. Right now, we have no place where all that content lives. It just goes out on their personal channels, right? Each individual creator. And one of the things one of my mentors said to me, Mark Byers, he was just like, man, I think you're crushing it with rec, except for in one area. He goes, the area that you need to grow on, as a company, but specifically you as a leader, is you guys aren't doing more to control the narrative, right? He's like, yo, man, you guys are in pole position. You guys should be saying who's hot. You guys should be drawing the attention to the people that are emerging.
Let me get a playlist. What's going on?
Right. You know what I'm saying? We need things like that. No, but you should do that. Yeah. Let's go. Let's cook that up. But when he was telling me that, I'm like, yo, you're right. And for me, I had this idea I've been incubating for the last 3 years. Yes, real great ideas take time to incubate, right? But Rec TV, right? For folks to say, yo, I'm outside of Philly. What's going on in Philly creativity? If I asked you to tell me right now, there's no one outlet in Philadelphia that's highlighting all of the dope talent that's here. Mm-hmm. So we're going to become that, right? And the vision for Rec for us is to build that platform where, you know, maybe eventually the Courtroom could live on this channel, right? And all these other really prominent media creations and artistic creations could be there. Because right now, man, I think the one thing that's special about what we're doing is, like I mentioned, if you're, you know, you come from where I come from, you're a young kid in Germantown right now, let's say you're 19, 20, you want something for yourself, you want to go and build a business, you look around and you don't even realize that there's people having the kind of conversations we have. You don't even realize that there's people that are exuding the way of being that you want to be, right? Because when I grew up, man, I didn't have no mentors, right? You know, I didn't have my pops, right, growing up, which is the same for a lot of young kids. So if you never saw someone do it, I think the old, you know, saying goes, you can't be what you can't see. Right. So I'm ready to just start documenting everything, knowing that this is history in the making, right? So that way we can just put it out there so people can see it and be like, oh, well, I know it's possible to build a business around what I love, make 80 grand a year, live a good, comfortable life, and not have to do a job I hate to trade my time for money. Right. But if you don't see that and they don't look like you don't know that you could do that. Right. So that's what's next for us. It's about documenting the culture in a meaningful way. And what I'm saying is we're going to make it so when you think of the Rec brand, you think of recording and documenting because you know that it's history in the making. Yep. And that's going to help us scale what we're doing in a meaningful way through media.
Right. And we've talked a lot about what, you know, what Rec's doing, what we're doing. Yeah. But Will Tom's the personal brand. I mean, you were part of a machine that raised $3.5 million. Yeah. In creative space, right? So as a black person, raising that sort of money, you know, that's already a check. It's also the check on that box. Mm-hmm. So many other things that need to be done. You know, what about your personal brand, and how do you feel like you can sort of impact, you know, the people a little bit more, or sort of
That's a really good question. You know, for me, a lot of what my energy till this point has gone into was building the Rec brand, building the company, building the infrastructure, you know, building our team, right? We got 17 full-time employees. So I've neglected my personal brand a lot.
You be a little more selfish, I agree.
You know? Yeah. And also I'm a super humble guy. Most people that know me, I'm super humble. So I like to shine light in other places, but I'm realizing that it's time for me to really use these same strategies I give to other people for myself and really grow that brand. So I'm ready to do that, right? My book's about to drop in a few months, which I'm excited about, giving people the game on how to turn an idea or a passion project into a profitable business, things like that.
Contributed. I'm excited.
You did contribute.
That'll be exciting.
Grateful for that. But for real, man, like just kind of tying into some of the things we've talked about, like I think I'm at a point where me being able to come from where I come from, right? You know, the traditional story of a lot of young people. Pops is booked, right? My dad's doing a 30 to 60, right? You know what I'm saying? I got a mom who was addicted to drugs my entire life, right? Like, I know what that looks like and I know what that feels like. So to come from that, you know, raised by my grandmother, to get to a space.
I've seen her.
Yeah, she's dope.
She always comes.
Shout out Gma one time, yo. I really, that's my heart. But to be able to come from that and then accomplish what I've accomplished and be willing to give the game back, I personally believe I'm adding value by just being, right? And then shining the light on my personal brand just to show people that there's other ways to do it. Yeah. Even us having this conversation, it's two black men sitting here sipping wine and talking through these things, I think is adding value.
In a new space, 10,000 square foot, you know, right at the Fashion District, 8th and Market, 9th and Market. Yep. Come on.
Because we can do this, and it's not just...
This is invaluable. You wouldn't have thought. There's people, you know, this is a Sunday, you know, we're working. You just wouldn't have thought. I wouldn't have never imagined in my life that this would happen.
That's it. But now that we've done it, I hope everyone watching this, or everyone who gets to know who we are and sees us, knows that whatever they have in their mind as their vision is possible. Right. And I want to stand for that. So as I invest in my personal brand and I start doing more speaking engagements and I'm releasing books and products, that's what it is. I just want people to rethink what's possible. Right. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's not even a thing of, should I build the personal brand? Should I be more vocal? I think it's my responsibility as a leader to do that, because I know that that's what my community needs, is more visible leaders who are doing it the right way and being willing to share the game.
I'm gonna go off in two different things before we end.
Mm-hmm.
Critics of rec and the model and what you guys do for the city. What are some last things that you want to just say? Like, I just feel like it's important that, criticisms are fair, but
sure.
What do you have to say for anyone who's sort of doubting what's happening here? It's not real culture. It's not. This is corporate. This is not representative of Philly. What do you say about that?
There's a couple pieces in there. It's not real culture. That idea is just false, right? It may not be what you're used to, but I do believe that this is what we as a community needs, right? Pushing the culture forward is not dyeing your hair blonde. Right. Pushing the culture forward is preaching ownership, but not just saying it and motivating people, but also putting the resources to give them access to them and educating, right? So you might be intimidated because it's different than what you're used to, but I believe the proof is in the pudding. Yep. I'd say pull up and then experience it and then tell me what your criticisms are. The second part of that, it's not real Philly. All the great eras of Philly music came from collaborative spaces, right? When we think about, what Gamble and Huff were doing with Philadelphia International Records, them being able to have a space where artists could come to the studios from artists like Mother, Father, Sister, Brother, and all these other really great acts. They had the ability to be in the studios with each other, mix and mingle, and that collaborative nature breeded some of the best records, which are now gold and platinum plaques, right? That's it. When I think about the neo-soul movement, which Philly is, that's who we are, right? Spaces and events like spaces like the Black Lily, right? And like those events created folks like Jill Scott to be able to have to go in there, and they were shooting in the gym, getting ready, right? That's it. So when I think of what the Philadelphia sound was, right, on the music space, or just what it means to be a Philadelphian in the creative space, it's a collaborative nature, right? So I think this is the truest essence of that. And I don't really brag and drop names and stuff, but me and Kenny Gamble have had conversations. He stood in the space before we even opened, and he believes in the vision. He's a big supporter of what we do because he knows what spaces meant to those artists back then, right? So his mind was blown to just see that we were moving and shaking in this way. Think about the Troy Carters and the Jay Irvings. These are champions of what we do because they know what it is and they know how needed it is, right? So all that stuff, man, it's critics talk, but that's what critics do. Right. But for me, I'm gonna just execute because I know that's what leaders do. So I'll just do that part.
We're doing this in January 2020. I mean, you project the next 10 years. Exciting time.
Crazy, whole new decade.
Man. I know, man. It's super, super exciting.
Just to put it in context, a decade ago, right? I graduated high school in 2009, right? So 2019 just ended. So last decade, I was just getting out of high school, and now here I am, right? Building this business, yada yada. So when I think about the next decade, bro, the sky's the limit, right? Because rec will be where it's going to be. It's going to be in at least 30 cities across the world, excuse me. But there's other ideas that I have for what comes next, even beyond rec. Right. And I'm so excited to put those into the consciousness of our culture and just push us forward.
And these next things, Philly, the Philly ecosystem, the greater Philadelphia area, we project the next 10 years. What do you hope to see?
Yeah, here's what I know is going to happen.
Let's go.
Yeah, in the next 10 years, and I'd even say in the next 7, there's going to be a shift in how people think about Philadelphia, right? Again, context. I'm a nerd, so I got to dig in real quick. This is the birthplace of the country, right? Philadelphia, the birthplace of independence, right? And the Declaration of Independence was signed here. People forget that, and that the founding fathers of our country come from here. Philadelphia has birthed so many innovative ideas. That's just who we are in our DNA. We're hustlers. We just create things that we know we need and don't exist. When people think about the music industry right now, they're thinking of Atlanta, right? Because of the wave that they've created. I would put some respect on Toronto's name. They've birthed a lot of great artists in the last couple of years.
Very cool city.
But I believe that because of so many things like technology and yada, 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 and then just the culture of Philly changing, Philly is going to be the next hub where folks are flocking to start their creative careers. Out here, you know what I'm saying? Tell them what you do, you know what I'm saying? What you do out here in these streets.
See, I go by. I go by Leon Xavier. You mean I'm the hottest DJ you ever heard in your fucking life.
Okay.
I represent Philadelphia.
Okay.
Rec Philly.
Okay.
You mean Thursday night groove.
Where we at with it?
You mean?
Where you be at with it? Yeah, where you be at with it on Thursday nights?
Oh, whoa. I be at Tiki Bar.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
mean? Last Thursday every month, right downtown, where all the cool kids at. You dig? Pop up.
Awesome.
Appreciate you.
What is this for, though?
So Karl just did this interview. Now, Karl interviewed me. He has a dope series called The Courtroom, and he interviews just cool people doing cool shit.
Where? Well, I'm Leon. Nice to meet you, bro.
Nice to meet you, man.
Yeah.
Wait. Are you the lawyer, Karl? Yeah. Oh, word. I follow you on Twitter. I think I follow you on Twitter.
There it is. Yep.
Word. All right, well.
But yeah, you can go this way. And just head straight down the stairs right here.
Word.
And be all set.
Boom. All right, man.
All right, brother. See ya.
Very unique. Very symbolic of the space, right?
Right. That's exactly it.
Into this dude.
They say, yo, you the lawyer, boy? I follow you.